Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started here. We're very happy to have the opportunity to speak with you all about a solution from First Insight that really does help to address a number of the challenges that were brought up in our keynote and several of the other presentations so far today. I'm Gretchen Jeserk from First Insight, and I'll share some background information with you about the solution, but really will then pretty quickly hand off to Mark Crystal from David's Bridal, because that will give you an opportunity to hear directly from a user of the solution about the experiences that they're having and how this is impacting their business in a positive way. So, not needing to belabor the point here, we heard quite a lot from our keynote and others about challenges facing the retail industry, which is really at an inflection point now. I'll get into a couple of comments on markdowns in a minute. Decreasing foot traffic. Actually, statistics show that foot traffic today is less than half what it was in 2009. So this is a pretty significant issue. Unprecedented quality and quantity of information is at the fingertips of consumers, and they're able to be comparison shopping in one retailer looking at pricing with another one on a mobile device, for example. Customer expectations, the see now, buy now is definitely a reality. We heard a lot about that regarding millennial consumers and the newer generations in particular. And essentially, the supply chain is really unable to keep up with the speed of change of consumer preferences. So some of our research into the space around price sensitivity and markdowns, we have seen in our huge data set, frankly, gathered since 2013, that women's wear in particular, women are only willing to pay about 76% of asking price on average for products. And recent consumer research that we did the end of last year found that 45% of women needed to see a discount of at least 41% in order to even set foot in a store. So we're really training consumers to wait for the sale. One way that companies can and do win in this challenging environment is by differentiating their products and really offering something that's different from others and that really aligns with what their consumers are looking for. So one example of this, we work with Lilly Pulitzer, and they are using our solution to identify which patterns really resonate with their consumers before they launch the products. And so that enables them to actually both understand in advance and then offer products that are unique and different and that resonate and that their consumers are willing to pay for, and they have an understanding of that price point. So this is an example of the differentiation that can be delivered and supported with our tool. You'll see later today, and also in your program guide, there are research results presented by Calypso and the Center for Education and Research in Retail out of Indiana University. And interestingly, they looked specifically at advanced analytics and found that the area of advanced analytics that is viewed as most important is, in fact, voice of the customer analytics, and 90% of respondents said that this was important. In addition, 71% of those who are using voice of the customer analytics are finding success and having business impact from doing so. So while there's definitely a lot more ground to cover, this is clearly a fruitful area that companies are viewing as important for their business and driving their business successfully going forward. So to talk just a bit about First Insight and who we are and what we do. So we are working with a broad range of retailers and brands globally to help companies to identify winning products, so design them and select the winners, understand how to price them, and also understand and implement how to market those to their key target customers. To give you a feel for just a few examples from our customer base, We're working across a variety of different sectors, ranging from vertically integrated retailers through to wholesalers, including also jewelry and home goods. We're also active in the European marketplace. And I'm happy to report, you may have seen a press release this morning that Chico's has signed on as a customer of First Insight, and that was jointly announced this morning. We've been in business, by the way, since 2007. And so in terms of the solution and how it works, we engage with consumers. Generally speaking, this is a group of consumers from the CRM database of our customer. We are also able to gather email addresses through a third-party set of partners. And so even if there's not a CRM database available, we're able to work with companies. That's the case with many of our wholesale customers. We will then work with you to send out an email to consumers who are the respondents. And that email starts with asking a set of some survey questions that can then go on and help you to understand better who these consumers are, perhaps even do some segmentation of them. If you're a wholesaler, you could be asking, do you buy shoes at Nordstrom's, at Macy's, or at Kohl's? And then you're able to understand which consumer you're speaking with and segment the data accordingly. And then finally, a set of products that you wish to test will be put in front of those consumers. We can show up to 5 different images of the products, have descriptions. They can be detailed descriptions to make sure that consumers really understand what they're looking at. And then they're asked to provide 3 key pieces of information. What do you think somebody would pay for this product? Do you love it or hate it? Somewhere on that scale. And then verbatim comments that could be even phrased as a specific question. Tell us what you like most or least about this design, or what do you think of the color, etc. So we gather the other information from the consumers and then process that through our proprietary algorithm. And based on what you see there on the right-hand side is the distribution of demand. So that's a demand curve for a product that hasn't even hit the market yet. Our sweet spot really is working with companies to test their products before they go to market. So it's kind of like tomorrow's Wall Street Journal today, if you want to look at it that way. Demand curve for the product is giving you insight in how you would want to price this product and whether that needs to be shifted to make it successful in the market. The right-hand side is showing here that you get the feedback in terms of sentiment, love it to hate it kind of sentiment. And then we push that through our proprietary algorithm that does a weighting and filtering of the responses based on how the consumers respond on a set of control items that are included in each test. And based on that, we're able to provide a value score. That's what you see in this case, a 7 at the bottom of the page. So value score is a 1 through 10 score. And it has been shown across all categories and geographies to be predictive of an item's performance in the market once it goes to market. 7s through 10s outperform 4s through 6s and dramatically outperform 1 through 3s. And many of our customers have decided categorically that they're not even going to put a product out in the market if it gets a value score below a 3 or a 4. So with that basis, I would like to hand things over to Mark Crystal from David's Bridal. Mark is very uniquely positioned to talk with you about the solution because he's absolutely passionate about analytics. He also has recently completed his PhD, in which his work was focused on consumer behavior. So Mark's very, very well positioned to speak with you about their use of First Insight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And as Gretchen said, I'm Mark Crystal. I am the Chief Supply Chain Officer for David's Bridal. And for my portion of the presentation, I really want to walk you through why we chose to partner with First Insight, the results we're achieving, and also our future roadmap with First Insight. But before we go through that, I thought it'd be good to ground everybody on who David's Bridal is, for those that aren't that familiar. So I'm going to start with a recent commercial and then give you a bit of kind of verbal background on David's Bridal and then go into why we chose to partner with First Insight. So if we could run the video.
do? Be your own bride. Only at David's Bridal.
Okay, so David's Bridal, we have a 60-year history, specifically focused in the bridal area. We've become known for providing outstanding value, fashionable designs, the ease of one-stop shopping, and really for allowing brides to actually take home a bridal gown the same day that she visits one of our stores. We've dominated the bridal industry in the U.S. We have almost 40% market share. 1 out of 3 brides in the U.S. actually wears one of our gowns on an annual basis. And nearly 60% of women in the U.S. will actually shop at a David's Bridal either as part of her wedding or as part of somebody else's wedding. We now have over 320 retail locations across the US, Canada, the UK, and we actually just recently opened our first store in Mexico. And we also have the #1 website, davidsbridal.com, in the bridal industry, and we generate about 100 million visits per year and growing. And our success is really built on a vertically integrated multi-channel design approach that really allows us to provide the best product availability, the best assortment, and the best value proposition in the bridal industry. We offer 11 exclusive brands, from White by Vera Wang, Truly Zac Posen, and Oleg Cassini, to our in-house brands like Jewel and DB Studio. And each of these really cover different price points as well as different product aesthetics. Our aim is to provide a one-stop shopping destination for our customers, really for all of her special occasions, but with a specific focus on helping her find her wedding gown, the one dress that she's really going to feel special in. And as a retailer, that we know that if we do that, we really have an opportunity to provide all of the related purchases around the wedding gown. So this slide really is an example of all the other categories of product that we provide, really head-to-toe dressing, not only for the bride, but for the bridal party, also for if she comes in for prom or homecoming or any special occasion. We really offer head-to-toe dressing, and then we actually have alterations in every one of our store locations. So why did we choose to go with First Insight? Given our dominant market position, we really needed to find new avenues of growth. And so we were looking to expand into new product segments in particular, while protecting our core offering. But actually part of this expansion that we've been pursuing over the last few years is actually into more fashion-forward products. But with the increasing pace of trend changes, we've decided to move away from in-store product testing, as we found that it was too slow and too expensive to really support our needs. And we were investing up to $3 million a year in inventory to support in-store testing, and had an elongated supply chain and lead time to get actually viable products back to customer. So we walked away from in-store testing and actually didn't do any testing at all. We wanted to be as close to market as possible, rely on the merchants to pick the right product at the right time. And while that strategy did improve our ability to get product to market in a kind of faster time frame, it really resulted in declining hit rates on products. So our markdowns increased and our inventory levels increased. And then compounding that is the bridal industry and the bride, who doesn't necessarily dream of finding the one on a clearance rack. So it actually takes us at least 2 years to clear product that doesn't work. And it's almost like there's no price that can move the wrong product for her. So that's ultimately why we turned to First Insight. Underpinning the decision was really a set of factors I think are common across the whole retail industry. So speed of change in customer demand, combined with the complexity of omni-channel retailing, really has brought increased competition and provided customers with easy ways to compare and contrast products and prices across all of the product types that we offer. And as I said, I think that's pretty common across all retailers these days. And then the speed of change and market complexity has also meant that it's nearly impossible now for a group of kind of small group of merchants to really understand what's happening in the marketplace and to be able to respond appropriately without supplemental insights. So traditionally, merchants and buyers were hired by retailers based on their ability to understand and anticipate customer wants. In my opinion, the days when this merchant job can be done effectively at scale while relying on these kind of traditional gut feel, intuition approaches are generally in the past. And so, those traditional merchant approaches also rely very heavily on point of sale data and analyzing what the customer purchased as a means of kind of driving, okay, what are we going to replenish, what are we going to mark down, and also what new products should we bring in. What the POS data doesn't provide in those traditional models is actually why. And it's not only why did the customer choose to purchase an item, but it's actually why did the customer choose not to purchase an item, which is equally important. And so in order to overcome those shortcomings, I believe that voice of customer is incredibly important to factor into assortment decisions. And fundamentally believe that mixed methods of analysis is actually what retailers need to be moving to and away from those kind of traditional methods. So I'm going to talk about mixed methods. So mixed methods is really just the combination of quantitative and qualitative data. So quantitative data is those kind of traditional point of sale data that you get on products. So it's how much did I sell, what price did I sell it at, or how many visits do I have to my website. Comparatively, qualitative data really provides subjective insights. So why was the unit sold? Why did the customer think this was the right price to pay for the garment? Or why don't they think that we're priced correctly? And why did they choose to visit our website over another or not come to our website at all? Separately, that data doesn't actually give you the insight you need. We've all relied as retailers on this quantitative data. We now have an opportunity to infuse this qualitative data and really make smarter decisions at the speed required for retail. And I believe that best practice now in the industry is really this mixed methods approach that brings both of these together. So putting this in context with First Insight, this slide is an example of quantitative data. So what you can see here is our products ranked from First Insight. You can see kind of the value scores. You can also see the price that customers are willing to pay for the product. And you can also see on the right-hand side of the screen a sentiment against the product. So I either love it or I hate it, which I think is good traditional data, but maybe is more data than actually we normally get, especially ahead of purchasing the items for our stores. Then qualitative data. So this is output that we get on the product that I actually think is what has been missing, and I think a lot of the value that First Insight has now brought, allowing us to combine this data. So effectively, the qualitative data is allowing us to identify attributes of products that customers really like and customers that they don't, attributes that they don't like. So you can see the comment maybe at the bottom of the screen here where it says, I love the Grecian feel, but don't put it with that top. That's kind of interesting feedback for a designer, for a merchant to say, okay, why is this customer or why are they ranking this product lower? You can kind of take this qualitative feedback and not only use that to change the design and the assortment selection, but actually use it to actually identify the attributes that customers are attracted to and use that for visual merchandising, using it for email marketing, so that you're really going after the attributes that customers are really perceiving to be preferential in terms of their product selection. So here on this slide, again, is another kind of view of the qualitative data where it's effectively coding and aggregating the data. And here you can see the sentiment against different attributes of our product, whether it's short or the silhouettes that we're offering. And you can see that generally we've got a negative sentiment against mermaid and trumpet silhouettes, but we've got positive sentiment against short silhouettes and the A-line and sheath. So again, it allows our design team and allows our merchant team to be tailoring the mix of the assortment in advance of putting the product into our stores. So this is the interactive portion of the presentation, and I'm going to seek your participation and see how good you all are at being bridal merchants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through 3 dresses. I'm going to you'll see them on screen. I'll read the descriptions to you. At the end of that, just by a show of hands, want to see who can kind of pick, or can the room pick the products that actually sold best in our stores. So start with product A. So this is, well, I'll read the verbiage here. So if you're looking for a ball gown for a beach wedding, you'll believe it's possible once you slip on this light as air tulle creation. The pleated bodice features double spaghetti straps, a flattering deep V neckline, and a figure cinching waistband. The full sweeping skirt provides a classic finish for even the most laid-back celebrations. Okay, so that's dress A. Dress B, this romantic ball gown features beaded lace appliques that begin on the strapless bodice and cascade onto the floaty tulle skirt. A beaded border at the hemline finishes the dress with soft sparkle. And dress C. A slip-like lace sheath dress veiled with appliqued blush-colored tulle strikes a romantic balance between sleek and ethereal. The airy train attaches with delicate buttons at the small of the back. Okay, so those are your 3 choices. So, show of hands, who believes dress A was the best seller? All right. 1, all right. How about dress B? Okay, and then how about dress C? Okay, interesting. So overwhelmingly dress B. So let's see how good you were. And it was dress B. So what's interesting about this, this isn't the first time I've kind of done this with a group, and actually every time so far the group has picked dress B. Now these are all dresses that we purchased into our stores. These are actually the value rankings that First Insight provided to us, and actually lines up with how this product sold in stores. And I think is a good example of how, effectively crowdsourcing and voice of customer can help guide, because it was very overwhelming that B was the winner. And in fact, that's exactly what we found in practice as well. And so it's that supplemental tool that then gives the merchants confidence to say, okay, I'm going this direction versus that direction. So I'm going to talk about some of the results that we've specifically been seeing from the use of First Insight. I think we've been a customer of First Insight for 5 or 6 years. And what I've done recently is actually go back and measure the accuracy or the ability of our merchants to pick winning products. So these are products that are really above average compared to First Insight's ability. And what you can see on this this chart, we split it up between under 600 and over 600. You can see that the merchant hit rate, so the ability to pick winning products, on average is about 20%. I actually think that's pretty standard for the industry. But you can see how much that's improved by using the First Insight tool set, and we've effectively gone from 2 to 4 times the improvement in terms of our ability to pick winning products. Perhaps more importantly is actually on the other side. We actually, when we get an avoid recommendation from First Insight, 100% of the time that has been a style that significantly underperforms. And so I went back and actually measured over the 5 or 6 years that we've been working with First Insight, how much inventory or unproductive inventory we would have been able to save had we actually verbatim followed First Insight's recommendations. And for us, we actually would have saved ourselves $6 million in unproductive inventory simply for avoiding the mistakes that we could have avoided proactively using First Insight, let alone the fact that it's improving our ability to pick winning products. Another measure that we went and looked at was actually gross margin dollar improvement. So products that we've run through First Insight versus ones that we haven't. In bridal, we're getting about an 18% improvement in gross margin dollars out the door in bridal, and then in bridesmaids, over 100% increase in gross margin dollars when we're using First Insight to help us pick product. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges that we work through was the need to bring product to market faster, and that really led us to walk away from in-store testing. In large part, this is because we found that in-store testing added months to the product to market timeline and added considerable supply chain and product costs. In addition, our store testing relied solely on point of sale data. So we really had no input from customers around why they were choosing products or why they weren't choosing products. We introduced First Insight to effectively replace in-store testing, but actually led us to rethink the importance of in-store testing. So I do think there's still a place for retailers to do in-store testing, but for me, it really is focused on getting kind of visual merchandising. It's getting that experiential feedback, but I don't think it's the gold standard any longer for actually product testing and actually figuring out if a product translates to, in a small group of test stores, translates to the balance of the chain. And a lot of that, I've run testing and analytics organizations for the last 15 years. It's very hard to take a small group product test and actually have that translate predictably to a larger group of stores. So largely why we've kind of moved away from in-store testing. We still do it, but we do it for the reasons that I mentioned. It's around visual, it's around training the stores, it's around understanding the experience in the stores, as opposed to picking products that we're going to roll to the chain. So I talked a little bit about shortening the supply chain based on moving, the difference between in-store testing and using First Insight. And I'll walk you through a Gartner study on our business. So at the top of the page here, you can see our time to market using an in-store testing methodology. So we would review samples in Asia. We would then produce those samples into a small group of test stores. We would then take about a month and a half or so to read the performance of that product in those test stores, and then we'd go and produce en masse for the balance of the chain. So end to end, it was about 8.5 months to bring new winning products to all stores. Using First Insight, we've actually cut that by 3 months according to this study, and actually we've pulled another 4 weeks out of this. We're down to about 4.5 months now using First Insight. And effectively what we're doing is we're still doing all of our product reviews in Asia in the factories there. We then shoot the product on a model in the factories. We then provide it to First Insight. We issue First Insight tests right there. And then we come back to the US. We have the results within a week or so. And then it says kind of a month and a half to kind of go through that and select the right products. And effectively, we've cut that down to 2 or 3 weeks now. And then we immediately go into production. So there's no need to produce the goods, put them in test stores, and read and react. We've really cut that out and really rely on First Insight now to provide us that insight in terms of how to engineer the assortment. Another, I think, interesting fact or kind of maybe reason to kind of shift towards First Insight testing and what is effectively image-based testing is the shift in consumer behavior and how the consumer's browsing product. For us, 5 years ago, our customers were coming into our stores, and our stores they described as actually the kind of the browsing engine for them. They would come, they would browse through our stores. We have the biggest assortment in the bridal industry, and then they may go shop with us, or they may go to other places, but that was the way they were shopping. Now, over 95% of our customers, the primary way they browse product is actually on Pinterest. So we've gone from actually 0% 5 years ago on Pinterest to almost 100% on Pinterest. And every single one of our customers is actually browsing product images online through sites like Pinterest, Google Images, and also our website before they will ever come to one of our stores. So it's completely flipped it on its head for us. And so then it's increasingly important for you to then, as a retailer, make sure that the product images you're putting out there are actually appealing to customers, and the product that they see in that image base is something that then appeals to them, that's going to drive them to stores. And effectively what we found with using First Insight is that it lines up very directly with how the customer's shopping. So we're doing image-based testing because that's how she's shopping now. But we've actually found that the results, and all the results I showed you, are actually brick and mortar results. But we're also finding that it's translating very cleanly to digital results as well. So kind of a good tie in there, and really ties with the shift in consumer behavior. So next, the kind of roadmap of what we're working with First Insight. One is using First Insight to study value perceptions. So as I mentioned earlier, we were pushing into more fashion-forward products, but we've also been pushing into higher-priced products. But it's not clear that we fully understand what customers perceive, how they perceive value, and what they're willing to pay for. And so as we make that shift into higher ticket prices, we want to make sure that actually they're going to be willing to pay the price that we put out. We're going to be putting more cost into the product. We want to make sure we get the return. A great example is a study we did a couple of years ago where we actually studied whether customers saw more value in silk versus synthetic. And overwhelmingly, our customer said that she felt that synthetic offered more, actually felt like it was higher quality and offered more value for money than silk does. She actually felt like the silk was thin and actually didn't offer value for money. And so we were going down a kind of a silk path and realized actually our customer does not want that, and she does not perceive value in that. And we would not actually be able to charge a higher retail for using silk in our gowns. Another way that we're really exploring using First Insight is really around price optimization. So as Gretchen showed, you can see the demand curve in the bottom right of the screen here. Really using First Insight to identify where we've got opportunities from a ticket and a selling price. So here, this example is showing that 26% of our gowns have a price increase opportunity, and 11% of our gowns actually have, kind of, she's not perceiving the value, and we actually should think about reticketing those products or adding additional promotions in order to move those products. So key takeaways, as I mentioned, I think that mixed methods of analysis is key for retailers now, really bringing together traditional quantitative methods with now qualitative methods using technologies like First Insight, and really allowing all the supply chain teams to understand why things are happening. Why is this product selling? Why is it not selling? And allowing the teams to make the right reactions, what you can't do without infusing these two data elements. And then being able to do that at speed, and that's what I've kind of illustrated with First Insight. Not only is it giving us that right data, but it actually is allowing us to bring our products to market much faster and more accurately than we've ever done before. It's also allowing us to move the needle in e-commerce and actually appeal on a broader basis to our customers across all of the image-based technologies to bring her to our website and then ultimately bring her to our stores. And as all retailers seek to achieve right product, right price, right customer, I think First Insight's really allowing us to pursue that more efficiently than we've done before and would be able to do without a technology like First Insight. So that's the end of my prepared remarks, and would just like to open it up for questions for either myself or Gretchen. Please.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the testing that you did to evaluate the silk versus the synthetic? Was that using First Insight, or did they actually touch and feel the fabric?
No, it was not. It was prior to. It was actually while we're using First Insight, but it was actually a focus group that we did. But it was an example of. Actually, the way we were going was to use silk and realize that the customer didn't want that. And actually, I've been working with First Insight on using their technology to really understand those value perceptions. So as you think about kind of product attributes or descriptions that we're using online to describe our product, what are they picking up on? What do they think offers value? What don't they think offers value? And First Insight provides us with a really good opportunity to really understand how our customer perceives those attributes, which we'd also validate in stores. But again, as I said before, what we found is the learnings that we're generating through this tool set actually are directly translating into brick and mortar. And so you kind of think the touch and feel has to be there, the emotional side of buying a bridal gown. You can't do this via digital means. It's not true. And I think we've proved that.
Two quick questions. One is, what's the sample size when you send this stuff out? And the other one is, how do you control for what you're seeing any particular garment next to? I mean, are you selecting one over the other three? And would you find if you retested a garment in a different set of garments that you might have a different result?
Do you want to?
Sure, I can speak to that. Thanks. So great questions, thanks. We generally need around 200 complete responses in order to close a test. And so how many emails need to be sent out really depends on a customer's response rate. Response rates can really vary. They might be 1 or 2%, they might be 5 or even 10%. So the sample size depends on getting that approximately 200 completes. And as for the other items in a test, we see very limited impact of that because the questions are asked specifically about each item separately. And so we really don't see a significant impact. It's frankly not done exactly as you saw with the three right next to each other. The items are presented individually, and that helps to minimize that impact.
I have a question about the process that you use to engage your customers and potential customers to make sure that you get quality data, because a lot of people are quite suspicious about, targeted marketing and that kind of thing. So just if you could speak a little bit about that process.
Yes, certainly. So we are specifically sending these surveys to our customer base. Our customer insight team is segmenting our database to make sure that we're not hitting that customer with too many emails. So we're anticipating, we actually built First Insight into our entire product calendar. So we know when we're going to be sending these surveys as part of our overall purchase journey. And so we're anticipating that in terms of other emails that those customers might receive. The other thing that we're doing is that we're making sure that we're sending to really customers that are immediately in the market. So either customers that haven't purchased yet or customers that have recently purchased, and we're making sure we're not sending to customers that are maybe 6 months past purchase, because for us, we don't tend to have a strong repeat customer. At least we hope we don't. So we try and make sure that those emails are, one, not overburdening her, and we actually accurately make sure that we're kind of metering those out to those customers as part of her journey. And one of the nice things about David's Bridal is there's a very pronounced journey, whereas a lot of retailers are constantly trying to kind of not only acquire but retain. And we actually have a defined journey. She gets engaged and she goes through this process of ideas and inspirations, and ultimately she buys the wedding gown, and then she moves on to the bridesmaids' dresses, and then all the attachments and accessories and the mother of the bride. It's a very predictable journey. And so we're able to actually figure out how to meter those emails out in the right way. And I think we've been pretty effective in doing that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.